Hi, and welcome to the Bundesliga Beard, a show about the German Bundesliga. So we just wrapped up the first weekend of play coming back from coronavirus. Still one game left tomorrow, Werder Bremen against Bayer Leverkusen. But let's break down what happened this weekend. So on Saturday in the Revierderby, probably the highlight of the weekend so far, it was Borussia Dortmund against FC Schalke, and it was a bit of a blowout. Even though Schalke played well, they did lose 4-0 against their opponents. And like I said, Schalke didn't play bad, but Borussia Dortmund, they were just phenomenal, top to bottom. All the players were at the top of their game. If you want to talk about Haaland, he scored again. Now 10 goals and 9 Bundesliga appearances. Also picked up an assist. The guy who I thought maybe should have been man of the match, Rafael Guerreiro, picked up 2 goals, scored the brace. His second goal was really incredible. Maybe the goal of the weekend, if you ask me, with the little flick of his outside of his foot. From that, it was just filthy. Go watch the replay if you haven't seen it yet. Also, the guy who did win man of the match, Julian Brandt, he was amazing as well. 2 assists. Really had a third assist if you want to talk about passing the ball to Hazard, who played it into Haaland, but 2 assists on the sheet. Really played well, subbing in for the injured Marco Reus. And then we just talked about him, but Torgan Hazard, he scored a goal as well. Great assist on Haaland's goal. Top to bottom, they were just great. Jadon Sancho came on late in the game, but they didn't even really need him. So I think going forward, they're still in title contention, 4 points behind Bayern, but those were a big 3 points for them. On the flip side, Schalke now falls out of a Europa League spot. Obviously, and you always want to win or at least get a point from your rivalry game, but they just really were not able to get any finishing. They played all right, but that wasn't going to cut it against Dortmund the way that they were playing. If we look at the other games, the big one, I think the headline on Saturday was that Leipzig only picks up a point against Freiburg, and they almost lost that game. Freiburg had a late goal that was called back. Koch scored a late goal that was called back on an offside for Freiburg, so it really was almost a loss for Leipzig. They were down 1-0, and Paulsen was able to get a great header late in I think about the 78th minute to at least secure a point. But with them only drawing in Mönchengladbach, who we'll talk a little bit about later, picking up the 3 points, they now find themselves in 4th position. So not a guaranteed Champions League spot, still a play-in spot there. But I think their title chances are pretty much done after that. So that was really disappointing if you're a Leipzig fan. If you're a Freiburg fan, hey, you picked up a point, you almost picked up 3, and they're still sitting in pretty decent position for the Europa League. Maybe the surprise of the weekend was Hoffenheim against Berlin. Hertha BSC under new manager Bruno Labbadia picked up 3 incredible points on 3 incredible goals. They are now 11th in the table. They jumped over their crosstown rival, FC Union Berlin, who lost to Bayern. Talk about that in a second as well, but they are now the best team in the city again. And I think I don't want to say they're guaranteed to not be relegated, but that was a big 3 points that they were able to pick up yesterday in that match. In the cellar dweller, Fortuna Düsseldorf against Paderborn, you could tell both teams were really going for it. Both teams knew that 3 points would be crucial in terms of trying to not get relegated this season. But at the end of the day, it was a 0-0 draw. Both teams really struggling now. If you look at Paderborn, it's pretty much curtains for them. I think if you ask me, Fortuna Düsseldorf, they still, they're 4 points behind the 15th place team, FSV Mainz, who also drew. We'll talk about that in a second. But those 2 teams were really going after it. Plenty of opportunities for both Düsseldorf and Paderborn, but at the end of the day, a 0-0 draw. Not what either fan base wanted on that. Maybe the most exciting game, at least down to the wire game that we had this weekend, was Augsburg against Wolfsburg. Around the 70th minute, Augsburg thought they had the lead again, had a goal, but they was overturned after VAR. Quite a bit of VAR this weekend, which I don't mind because at least you're getting the calls right. And then, unfortunately for Augsburg, at the very end of the game, substituted in Daniel Ginczek for Wolfsburg, gets the cross, scores the goal. Boom, 3 points for Wolfsburg. And with the Schalke loss, too, they are now into that 6th and final Europa League spot. So big 3 points for them in the 90th minute. Great goal by Ginczek. And they're looking pretty good right now. There's obviously, no team had momentum going into this weekend, but coming out of it, I think Wolfsburg find themselves in a pretty good position. If we go to the late game on Saturday, Eintracht Frankfurt against Borussia Mönchengladbach, you couldn't have asked for a better start if you're a fan of the Foles. 2 quick goals in, I think, 9 minutes. They scored the first 2 goals. I think the first goal came in the first minute or maybe the second minute, but it was just too much for Frankfurt to overcome. They did get a late goal, but at that point they were already down 3-0 after Mönchengladbach scored another penalty in the second half. So great start for Mönchengladbach. Like I said, they did jump over Leipzig, so they're now in 3rd place, 6 points behind the leaders Bayern. They have everything to play for. It's still on the table. The title is still there. They can make up the points. They know that in a couple weeks, Dortmund and Bayern are going to play against each other, probably cannibalize a little bit, so they'll be able to make up ground, hopefully. If you're a fan of Mönchengladbach, hopefully they can pick up the points on their end to try and springboard themselves forward. But for the time being, they're able to jump over Leipzig after their draw and now find themselves sitting there in 3rd position. Great spot for them and a great win over the weekend. They looked really good. So if we move on to the Sunday games in the early matchup, it was 1. FC Köln against 1. FSV Mainz 05. Talked about that slightly before. Köln got a penalty early, took the 1-0 lead. Second half goal, 53rd minute, they scored again, but then they blew it, okay? As the FSV Mainz scored 2 goals in the second half and were able to salvage a point out of that game. For me, if you're a Mainz fan, that's a win, okay? You're sitting there, bottom of the table pretty much. I mean, before that game, even after the game, they're sitting there 15th, all right? And now you're down 2 goals. That is do or die at that point, and they're able to get 2 goals, pick up the 1 point, and keep pace at least with Düsseldorf, who's chasing them. So 4 points out of relegation. They're not clear of it by any means, but considering where they were down 2-0, I think you got to be happy that they were able to pick up that 1 point. And if we take a look at the last game of the weekend that has already taken place, it was 1. FC Union Berlin at home against the league leaders right now, FC Bayern München. Little bit, I don't want to say a slow start for Bayern, but they weren't able to get a goal until the 40th minute. They did have a goal called back early, I think around the 15th minute on the offsides. It was a goal by Müller, but he was ruled offside, so no goal there. Again, VAR coming into play in several different games and in the Bayern game as well. And then in the 40th minute, Lewandowski able to score on the penalty. It was definitely a penalty, too. I was watching the game. Goretzka was running in the box, going after a loose ball. Former Dortmund man, Neven Subotic, just kicks. He goes after the ball, but he kicks Goretzka in the back of the leg. He goes down. It is a clear penalty. Lewandowski, he's not going to miss that. He misses very few penalties, so he scores that one, and they get the lead right before half. They kept playing strong in the second half and were able to get a second goal from Pavard in the 80th minute off a cross from Kimmich. So they looked good. They dominated possession. Alphonso Davies was incredible, running all over the pitch. Really, they looked strong. Thiago looked great. Defensively, they looked good. Neuer didn't really have too many issues, a couple shots on goal, but he was on top of it and able to keep the clean sheet. So going into Monday, last game of the weekend, it's SV Werder Bremen against Bayer 04 Leverkusen. Like I talked about on the last preview for this weekend, Werder Bremen have to at least pick up a point. I think if they don't pick up a point, if they don't draw against Leverkusen, it's going to be pretty much curtains for them. I know they have 2 games in hand against everyone else, but right now they're sitting there. They have 18 points. Düsseldorf picked up a point. Okay, so if they're trying to chase Düsseldorf for that 16th, the playoff spot, or even get out of that is to get to Mainz's position, they need to pick up points, okay? And they're facing a team who right now is sitting at 5th, okay? They have an opportunity to catch Leipzig, Bayer Leverkusen. They have an opportunity to get into the Champions League. Right now, they're only 4 points back of it with a game in hand, so if they pick up 3 points, they're sitting 1 point behind Leipzig, who has been struggling. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for Leverkusen to be able to get into that Champions League spot. But for Werder Bremen, very, very historic club. If they don't pick up that point, it might be curtains for them. So that's been the wrap of this weekend for the Bundesliga Beard. I hope you enjoyed watching as I did as well. I'll be watching again tomorrow for that Bremen-Leverkusen game as well. And then I'll have another episode previewing next week's games as well. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Have a good one. Bye.